And welcome one and all to another episode of the Engagement Tree. I'm joined today by my colleague Sarah Sanders from the Strive Group and our very special guest, Mark Turnbull of Evergreen Change Consultancy. Welcome, Mark. Pleasure to have you on. Hopefully this isolation isn't causing you too much of an issue and you're getting through it mentally and emotionally okay. We may as well just kick straight into it. Mark, if you can, bit of an introduction of yourself, your career to date, a little bit about yourself, so that the people who potentially aren't aware of you can get a little bit of an insight into yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I've been working in change management for about the last 10 or 12 years. Before that was more kind of operational roles, particularly within contact center. So managing multiple teams there. And then I'd say the last 10 or 12 years I started to get involved as Lean Six Sigma black belt, and that kind of kick-started change career for me, and really found that really interesting. And I think both from a kind of process engineering point of view and then the kind of relationship management and people aspect of it. And from there really worked on different kinds of change, so everything from strategy to organizational design, process tech change, people change, and kind of coaching development, and in a range of different industries, so from retail, warehouse and logistics, crane hire, buying and merchandising, bit of financial services, bit of finance. Yeah, so that's kind of been what's kick-started my change management career. Was originally Lean Six Sigma, and then worked across things like agile and waterfall, different disciplines, more recently.
All things that are very, very exciting. So you've worked completely cross-sector. I mean,
Yeah.
you've never had a specific sector. It's been very varied, which must give you massive amounts of experience.
Yeah, it's been really good, and I think variety as well. I'm quite a generalist, so I do like that variety. And a lot of the work that I've done has either been kind of 3 to 6 months, or kind of 3-4 year type programs, with a lot of kind of different aspects to that as well, and with very different goals and different types of people to work with. So it's been really valuable, definitely.
Okay.
So Mark, for those of us that don't know very much about change management, you just dropped in quite a few different terminologies that might not mean as much to many people. Can you tell us what change management is, or maybe give us a couple of examples in everyday speak of what your roles look like?
Sure, and I think for people who aren't as familiar with change management and haven't really experienced it, it does almost feel like something that shouldn't exist. And you kind of say, if it's about a business wants to either change how they interact with their customers or change their way of working, then there's some level of change management involved. And depending on what that is, depending on the business, depends on whether someone like myself will get involved. And particularly the kind of organisations that I'd work with, and the kind of projects would be either if a business is really struggling to understand what the root cause of an issue is. So they know they've got lots of issues, there's lots of challenges and things that they're trying to fix, but they don't necessarily understand what are the right things to do to fix it. Or where it's a program that's quite complex, and typically it would involve a lot of people or some technology change, and trying to, I guess, move people from A to B, and from a customer point of view as well. So really on the kind of purpose of it, there's a lot of businesses that spend millions of pounds on change programs that ultimately fail, and that's where a role like mine would really come in and try and work with them and support them to see, are we really clear about what are they trying to get out of it, what's the ultimate goal at the end, and putting things in place to try and deliver that.
I mean, in terms of knowing where to start and bringing that outside, I suppose, perspective into an organisation to really understand, actually, more often than not, what people can't see because they're so ingrained within what's happening within that business. the current climate sees businesses trying to adapt and work from home or work with different processes. What for you? What are the types of processes or interventions that businesses can be really looking at now in this current climate?
Yeah, I think just starting to think differently. There's whole kind of tool sets and stuff like that, but the first thing is just the simple looking at things differently, and trying to make that effort. And I think it's difficult when, I think particularly today across different industries, everyone's really busy. Everyone tends to have really full diaries and massive to-do lists and task lists. And it just doesn't really create a lot of capacity to be able to look at change and look at doing things differently. A lot of change programs are driven by the exec members. And I think trying to get that balance where you've obviously got strategic priorities, but also the people in a business being able to identify changes and look at how can they do things differently. So just taking that first step particularly. And then I think as well, one of the biggest challenges in any change program is the focus on the solution. Businesses will often come up with the best kind of solution that works, but it doesn't necessarily work for the people using it, or they haven't got that kind of buy-in. And I guess where you've got working from home and there's a risk for people of not communicating enough.
Yeah.
I see businesses starting to try to communicate more, and they're almost trying to over communicate, which I think is a great thing, and using that really to get a bit closer to the people in a weird way. That distance forces a closeness, and try and drive that acceptance of change, which is just as important as the solution itself, whatever the kind of idea is that they're trying to drive.
I think that, and you're quite right. Having that, we as the Strive Group, we're continuously now trying to adapt how we engage and how we support our clients and how we interact with our clients. But you can have the greatest solution in the world, I think. But if people aren't following you on that track, and certainly from such a distance, it must be quite difficult for people to almost implement that change on such a remote basis.
Yeah, exactly. And going through that kind of thing at the moment, personally, in companies that work with, and I think just getting that real clear vision up front of saying, this is what we want to achieve and this is why.
Yeah.
And it's the bit that is often missed. There's often a lot of thinking about how's it going to work, and what happens if you press this button, or this person will do this thing and then this person will do this thing, but pulling it back to the why, trying to say this is what we're trying to achieve, this is what it's going to mean to our business, this is what it will mean to our people, and bringing people on that kind of journey, I think is really important and really valuable, because that's the thing that makes sure that you're kind of tied to what you're trying to deliver. It's very easy when you're delivering change, especially if there's a different team involved, to create their own kind of subculture and become disconnected from their customers or the rest of the business, and kind of go off and do their own thing. I think it's really important to have those ties back, to say, why is it that we're delivering it and what does it mean to people? Keep that constant communication.
Good.
So Mark, you've touched on a few different things of how change is obviously happening now. What are if you have any thoughts on what the future years look like for the business world, and what predictions, I guess, do you make that we're going to see change and I guess implement and deliver differently to as we are now?
Yeah, so I think particularly with obviously challenges that happen at the moment, I think one of the things it is doing is forcing people to change.
Yeah.
And it's very easy and very tempting to people to stay in the status quo. And I think that's the most dangerous thing for a business, is to keep operating how they've always operated. And someone called Guy Kawasaki, he was the chief evangelist for Apple and has worked with people like Google, is a really good example of the ice industry and how you had £10 million worth of ice being moved around by sleigh and horses and reindeer and all that kind of thing. And then factories came along that stored the ice and distributed it. And then refrigerators came along. And no one working in those industries kind of saw the next change coming. So none of them moved with the times to be able to say, actually, we've got these big ice factories, we need to develop a refrigerator. It was always someone else that came along and did that innovation. And having at the heart of it, the purpose of those three businesses is to get ice to the customer, or some level of coldness to the customer. But each of those businesses kind of lost track of that and got stuck in that mindset of, we do this, we move ice from A to B. So using this to force that change and to start looking at kind of innovative approaches, and whether that's something that's really about future industry, or whether that's just about doing things incrementally different and incremental changes, which I think is much more kind of easier and safer for businesses now, and has become, rather than these big kind of change programs that change everything in the business, people are moving more towards things like agile, which is just a way of delivering small change, really, rather than a big change that happens on one day and people come into the office and the world's changed. So I think moving more towards that kind of way of working. What really important is taking the teams with them, and I think honesty and openness in these kind of times really helps. And for me, I've started to see people coming together a lot more. And that's one of the things that I'd really like to see over the future, is that kind of collaboration and almost that we're in it together kind of spirit, and a lot more kind of kindness of trying to help each other. And you can see that within businesses and across businesses. People trying to face the challenges that we've got at the moment and overcome them.
And that's brilliant. The example there of the moving of the ice to the warehouse, to the refrigerators, it is amazing, because actually you hear so many times of people who have worked within an organisation and potentially their ideas haven't been listened to, and they've gone on to create great things. You see the WhatsApp sprang up out of Facebook, and then they bought it back, I think. But all of these different digital platforms that, where these people have worked for those large organisations and potentially weren't listened to, the likes of Vax and Dyson and more recently GTech. All of these people have worked together and not had the opportunity where they were, and taken that away and created something great. I think that's a fantastic example, and one where organisations really, certainly now, over communication is brilliant, and now absorbing and listening, and now is the time to reach out to your employee network. What are their thoughts? What are their ideas? We've spoken about for the future. It's almost setting them, whilst we've got this downtime, the thinking time, the personal development time. What are their thoughts on what we could achieve in the future? I think that's a great point, a fantastic point.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, listening, which for me is a really underrated behaviour and thing in business, particularly. And I think this is where we're starting to see leadership changing a lot and shift from the kind of classic leader who's really clear and really driven and knows exactly what they want at the end of it, and nothing will stop them kind of approach, which is it's obviously worked many times in many businesses. But I think leadership now is moving a lot more towards people who are listening and recognise the skills around them and get the right skills that are balanced and that are different, and someone who's more able to communicate with all of those different types of people and bring them together to create a powerful team. For me, that it's a really good thing, that kind of collaboration that started to see a lot more, and particularly at a kind of exec board level, that that cohesion and like one vision and one plan that's really felt through a whole business. So yeah, listening I think is a key thing. And the other, in terms of people with those ideas, I think creative people tend to think a bit differently and act a bit differently, and it's easy for those ideas to be sidelined, because they tend to, as soon as you kind of hear about it, often they don't seem like a good idea. It seems something that's a bit ridiculous, far-fetched, or too big to achieve, and often is kind of like delivered late by someone who procrastinates all the time. And I think recognizing that people are different, and everyone's got their different strengths to bring, and some of the best ideas are hidden under something that might not traditionally be considered really good business practice.
Perfect. And I think you're quite. I think leadership and management is now very much more of a science than a process driven. And I think generations and people have changed so much. That the difference in personalities and characters you now have within an organisation, that in order to really profit from all of their ideas, their skills, their knowledge, their experience, being a leader and a manager these days is very much an understanding of the science behind how you can really get the best out of your people and motivate them. And this is the biggest challenge, again, remotely communicating how you can support and wrap your arm around those people from such a distance away. But it's an exciting challenge, and those that come through it positively will come through it very well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that understanding is how to access that motivation for people and understanding what motivates them.
So that is your day-to-day part, but I understand that you are also somewhat of a writer, and you are very recently had some published work in the sci-fi genre. And being a bit of a sci-fi geek myself, very much a fan of the Lord of the Rings, the Star Wars, the Star Treks, all of these fantasy books. I was very excited to hear that you've recently had some work published. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's always been a dream of mine, writing. Always been something I've been interested in, and there's been kind of pauses over the last, I would say, decade or so when I started. And I started around 10 or 12 years ago, actually, writing what was my first novel. I didn't really know what I was doing, just tried it and had to go. And then spent the last kind of 10 years learning how to write and just studying different books and listening a lot to different writers. And I think that's where, today we're really lucky to have things like YouTube, that there's all kind of masters out there on every type of discipline that you can access and use that really. And wrote a few other things along the way, and then came back to my first book, which has now been published it's exclusively through Amazon at the moment, on Kindle and paperback. And it's a sci-fi thriller that, for me, a lot of the kind of sci-fi thrillers of the 90s really excited me. And 90s was a great time for me, at least, and seeing them. So in that kind of spirit, yeah.
And what's it called for those people who would be interested in finding it?
So it's called We Come in Peace. As I say, it's on Amazon at the moment. If you've got Kindle Unlimited, then you can download it for free. And then it's available to purchase as an ebook and paperback as well. And for me, the great thing is, having it out there and just having people read it is brilliant. There's so much of it that's really good for yourself, and just that enjoyment of doing it and feeling completion of it. But then having people reading it is a kind of a next level again. A bit nerve-wracking, but exciting.
So Mark, I can't share Ben's enthusiasm for sci-fi at all, but I will read it, I promise. But the period of change at the minute, and the amount of time that obviously we've all got back and we're trying to find something to do, did that push you to complete the book? Is that where it came from, or?
Yeah, definitely. So I am a bit of a procrastinator, and some of it was about it can always be better and it can always be better. So lots and lots of rewrites, and some of it I think was just kind of pushing that button to get it out into the world.
Yeah.
So I was planning on releasing it soon, but this definitely pushed me to say, now's a good time. And you see a lot of people putting content out there like yourselves, for people to be able to appreciate and fill their time a little bit and get some engagement from and get some enjoyment from. And that's what I wanted really, is, the ideal for me is people read it and they enjoy it, and it'd be great to hear that they enjoy it, to know that would be the best. Yeah, so it definitely did influence it a lot.
Well, and a lot of people have got a lot of spare time on their hands. So if you're looking for something to read, then get yourself on We Come in Peace by Mark Turnbull, and that's on Amazon and Amazon Kindle. Mark, I think we don't want to hold you back from your day-to-day activities anymore. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to you and understanding change management in a bit more detail. Something I've always admired from a distance and never had the opportunity really to be involved in, but an integral part of any business, and certainly at the moment, any business that's looking to evolve and continue and remain productive and come out of this the other side and into the future. Something that everybody should be adapting and should be ensuring that they're looking at those principles and looking at how they operate a business. But yeah, thank you very much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Really a pleasure. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.